Okay, so we've talked about your mind for survival, the whole mindset thing. You kind of took a different route in being prepared than what we took, because our route for being prepared was buying property and sitting down. I mean, my spear's planted here. I'm not going I'm too old and fat to be running anymore. So this is where we take our stand if we ever have to make one. You kind of chose a different route, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I chose what was available to me at the time.
Okay.
Because when I went down the PTSD rabbit hole, I ended up coming to a choice at the end of summer of 2019. It was after I went up, did inpatient therapy and all that, and I came back and I said, oh, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done on this. And so I was running the North American Rescues Education and Training Center. We taught SEALs and Rangers and other government agencies tactical medicine. Well, we did it by having very realistic scenarios, right? So we're blowing up bombs, we're having gunfire, people screaming, like just all the stuff that a person that's trying to figure out their PTSD probably shouldn't be hanging out around. And I realized, like, I could barely function. Like, trying to open emails at work was an all day process. And so I realized, like, hey, either I go and try to implement the lessons I learned when I went into the recovery program, or I'm going to probably eat a gun. So I ended up bouncing on work. I said, I can't do this anymore. And I ended up going into deep into debt. Like, I maxed out everything. I didn't really have a pot to piss in. So when everything went south on the preparedness stuff, I'm like, all right, well, what can when the pandemic was rolling around, or whatever you want to call it, was rolling around, I was like, what can I do to be prepared as best as possible? And so that I looked at it as more of, well, I have a network of friends that live around the country, have rural properties and stuff. So all of them are good with letting me come and hang out. And so basically it was, all right, what can I do to load up my stuff that I can take to be as prepared as possible and go stay with them? So that's kind of what I ended up doing. I've really done for the past, it gets a little bit old, like living on the road. And now I'm not a van lifer where I'm in a van. I do have a van that I'm working on building, so that might be an option. But it was, I went up to Michigan, and I would spend 6 months in the woods of Michigan. Then I had people that were down south and other places that I'd go spend time with at their places. And so what I would do is I'd pack up my truck, and I'd put as much of my prepper gear in it and move around the country that way. And so end up evolving to now I have I finally got out of debt, got all my stuff taken care of. And so now I have a GMC dually with a 100-gallon transfer tank that's direct plumbed into the fuel system in the back. So I can get, if I drive 70 miles an hour, which is interesting. I drove to California from Georgia the last time I came out here. In New Mexico, where you don't run into much traffic, I did a couple of road tests. One was driving 70 miles an hour for 25 miles, and then 75 miles an hour for 25 miles. 7 miles a gallon difference between 70 and 75. So everybody who wants to think what your fuel mileage is, I recommend going out there, and if you can get some road time in where you can put a cruise control on, see what your gas mileage is at the different speeds you can travel. So now I have a over 2,000 mile range with it. So my little prepper network. The only thing I have to do is when I travel now is I just make sure I stock up on whatever I can fit in my truck, and I drive around the country with that.
So aside from fuel, are there any special considerations in doing it that way? Is there anything? I mean, just during normal times?
No, I don't. I think, my biggest thing is being a prepper is gun laws, right? Because you're traveling from state to state. I'm always moving between states, so always worried about that, because you look at the court cases in New Jersey where people have gotten off the wrong turnoff, ended up in New Jersey, and next thing you know, they're going to doing prison time for having a weapon in the car and stuff. So I'm really cognizant about that. I tell everybody, as much as we, as big of a believer in the Second Amendment as I am, I don't want to test it with even being here in California. I stop at my place in Nevada when I come in here, and I only bring California legal guns into California. Other than that, it's I always try to make sure. I usually travel with Pelican cases. That's what I carry all my stuff in, so that way I can get it in and out pretty quick and it's easy. So I usually travel with a Pelican case or two full of the long-term storage food. The truck has an inverter in it, kind of thing, so I can heat up water. And other than that, it's really about route planning and figuring out where you're going and doing a good route to get there.
Thanks, Milo.